Hello everybody. So I wanted to have a little comment about the cricket as it's been going on. The one in the West Indies. Australia made it all the way to the World Test Championship final the second time in a row. We lost and we could have easily won. But, this does not feel good watching this. Now it is in West Indies. Got to remember that West Indies had one of the best home ground advantages in the world for a long time. I'd say right now India's the team that has the best home ground advantage. I don't think there's really any doubt about that. But yeah, certainly when I was growing up and going the early 80s, early 1980s or even up to the 1990s, you went to the West Indies and you didn't win. Now West Indies in that time were actually a bit lazy, in that they'd usually, let's say you got a 5-test series, they'd win the first 3 by humongous amounts, and then they'd just suck off, party and stuff. The series is won. And when you get to the dead rubber, they didn't even try really hard and you'd have a chance. You didn't necessarily win, and they did definitely have 4-0s and 5-0s, but you had a chance. You might end up with a 3-1 or even a 3-2, but that didn't mean that you were close. That just meant that they weren't doing their best once the series was won. And that was the case actually home and away for them during their dominant period from probably around 1972 up to about, officially I think it was like 1991 or 1992, but I'd say realistically till about 1988, 89. But anyway, whatever the case was, whichever the exact years, during that time, they didn't lose at home. And they didn't really lose away either. And so there are times where this memory comes back and they do something amazing, particularly at home. And they did win a test match in Australia. In fact, when they came to Australia, they drew the 2-test series 1-1. So with that in mind, it shouldn't be an absolute shock that West Indies are doing well. And we don't know if they're going to win yet. But it shouldn't be a complete shock, because sometimes they do pull these dreams out and they do as well as they used to do. I also wanted to note that, and I know there's a lot of talk about India pitch doctoring, there was never a time when West Indies were ever accused of pitch doctoring. So the accusations were that Pakistan used to cheat with the biased umpires, the cheating umpires. And what West Indies used to do is that they would change the ball after 75 overs while everybody else would be after 85, or was it 70 instead of 80? They'd change the ball more quickly. That was considered cheating. That was as close as they got to cheating, because they would always go in with 4 fast bowlers, and most teams would have at least one spinner, and their fast bowlers were never as good. So that was as close as West Indies ever did to having anyone complain. I remember there was a time when Bishan Bedi, who was at one stage the captain of India, he complained about too many bounces, and so there was a number of Indian players in the tail enders who refused to bat in one of the matches, and he just told them, "No, come out, retire, hurt," before they'd even been hit. And there was a lot of fear of their fast bowlers, and of course nowadays you're not allowed to bowl intimidating bowling to tail enders and so forth. They changed some of the rules because of that. Anyway, so West Indies went into this with 4 fast bowlers and a spinner, so 5 bowlers, which is not unusual for them. Australia went in with 3 fast bowlers and a spinner, although we do have Beau Webster, who can bowl both pace and spin, but mostly he's been bowling pace. I wouldn't call him the same level as the fast bowlers. So he's more of a number 6 batsman who bowls a little bit. But yeah, we did have that. And of course, I found it funny that the team sheet, it had Cameron Green listed on the TV as being an all-rounder. But at the moment, due to injury, he can't bowl. So he's just a batsman. And I said before, I don't think Cameron Green should be playing when he's not bowling. It was okay to give him a try I don't think the World Test Championship was the time to try him, but they tried him, It failed, and then they brought him in again, and I don't think they should have. I think they should have given Labuschagne another test. The advantage I see of dropping Labuschagne is that it's a bit of a wake-up call. There's one thing to threaten to drop somebody, but they've actually dropped him. So that might mean that Labuschagne will come back stronger. It might be. Because I think on merit, that should have actually dropped Green, not Labuschagne. And there was a merit to keeping both and not having Inglis. But, I mean, if you were going to bring Inglis in, it had to be for Green, not for Labuschagne. And anyway, look, I can see the merit to it. I'm not extremely angry with that idea. It's not as bad as their team for the World Test Championship final. I think this was close to Australia's best team, so I'm fairly happy with the selectors for this one. Personally, I would have, as I said, I would have picked Labuschagne instead of Green. And if I did play Green, it would be without Inglis playing. So I played Green with Labuschagne. Labuschagne for me is ahead of Green at the moment. So we started off Australia batted first, and the comment by Pat Cummins, who won the toss, was, "Oh, it looks pretty good to bat on." Well, we got 180. So if that's good to bat on, then I don't know what bad to bat on is. I mean, and when it started off, I noticed that Sam Constas, who was really the focus of the whole match for me, he was batting very differently. He wasn't batting carelessly like he was in his first two tests in Australia. He was batting very reservedly. And I would say in a lot of ways he looked confused. It was almost like he had how he wants to play, and the coaches had came in and said, "No, you have to play this way." And so he was sort of stuck between the two. And that's what I saw about him. So, and the thing is, considering how the game played, he would have been better off to if he played what we'd say his natural game, like he did against Bumrah and in Australia, in the Indian series, or the series against India. I think we would have been better off for him to have played his natural game, a bit aggressive. And this is the problem when you confuse players. You give them contradictory instructions and then they end up they don't know what to do. So he got 3, and that was like I was disappointed, because that was the whole point of the match for me, was to see if he could handle it. West Indies were an easier opponent, even in the West Indies, and I thought this is where he could get a big century and prove that he can play Test cricket. Well, instead he got 3. Now, okay, the ball that got him out was a bit of a tough one, but I really do think that if he'd been in good form, he would have even probably hit that for a boundary instead of having him trapped LBW. I don't think it was that unplayable ball. I think it was just he was caught in two minds and didn't really know what to do, and so it got him out. I don't think that would have got him out had he been playing like he did against India. I don't think it was that unplayable ball. And of course, with that happening, we then had Cameron Green come out and edge one behind for when he was still on 0, which he did in the World Test Championship final. He edged one behind for when he was on 0, went for 4, and then he was out for 4. This time he edged it, didn't get any runs. It was dropped, and which is kind of worse than his World Test Championship final performance. And then he managed to get 3 runs and then was out again. So he's in abysmal form, at least at the Test level. And I know he did well in the County Championship, but at the Test level, he's got scores of 4, 0 and 3. And you can, and that's pretty bad itself. 7 runs in 3 innings, that's an average of 2.66. But on top of that, he also was dropped on 0 and again dropped here, so 2 more drops. So he, I know we don't count drops in statistics, but it could have easily been 7 runs for 5 dismissal. This is since his return. This is about as bad as Shaun Marsh did when he had that big slump. I can't remember which year it was, but he just was getting out for nothing all over the place for about 6 months or so. And this is about as bad as Cameron Green is looking right now. There's no way. I would I would drop him from the second test and don't care who they have to put in for him. I wouldn't even consider playing him. And that's regardless of if Steve Smith is able to play or not, because I know we've still got Labuschagne in the team. Cameron Green, for me, is no chance of playing in the second test. For me, like if I was the selector, I don't know how the selectors are feeling. Maybe they're thinking he can play. So Constance wasn't great, but there was at least some hope for him. He at least looked like he might be suitable. Green looked horrendous. Green was looking about as out of place as Nathan McSweeney looked against India, which was horrendous for anyone that watched it. I know there's Nathan McSweeney fans who are like, oh, he was so wonderful. Oh, Sam Constance is awful. Bring in McSweeney. McSweeney looked like he didn't belong. It wasn't just the scores, it's how you look. Constance didn't look great in his dismissal, but he looked okay. Josh Inglis also came out, looked actually pretty good, and then got out. So he had 3 early wickets. Now 2 of them actually looked, I'd say Inglis looked the best of the 3, but Constance didn't look terrible, he just looked a bit unsure of himself. And it sort of was the kind of look that if he'd managed to get 20 or 30 runs on the board, he would have started to open up and get some shots and get towards a 50 or a century, and it just sort of felt that. But he got out. So, you know, sometimes it can be a fine line, and that's what happened. It didn't look appalling. Like if I was a coach and I was the selector and I'm looking at that, I'm saying, not ideal, but not appalling. And his commitment was good. He wasn't throwing his wicket away, but he needs to understand his game. It reminded me of Glenn Maxwell early in his career when he'd just go in and just smash sixes all the time. And that was great for when that was needed, but sometimes it wasn't needed, and he'd get out for 3 when they needed him to just block the ball for a while. Now later on he worked out and he adapted. And this is something that happens not just over time, but with good coaching, good commitment, good words. And so Constance right now I think is having some of the same sort of issues that Glenn Maxwell was having early in his career. And you can also see that with Jake Fraser-McGurk, who also smashes things to all parts. And I actually think that Fraser-McGurk has the temperament to make it in Test cricket. And I know some people say, what the hell, he averages 17 in first class cricket. But the temperament, I think a few small changes could make him Test level. He certainly has the ability to play in the big occasions. I'm not guaranteeing he's going to be the next Test opener, but he has the temperament. He has, because that's often the difficulty, is going from first class level to international level, is a lot of players just can't handle the step up. And I think that's in any sport. When you go from state level to international, it's a big step up. There's a lot more scrutiny. People actually watch it on TV. A lot more people are aware of you. And so the fact that Jake Fraser-McGurk could step up for at least the IPL, which is perhaps not quite international, but close, and to be the leading run scorer in his first season, I think that tells me he could be a Test opener. And I'm saying he will, but he could. And I also see that with Sam Constance. I think he has the right temperament. I definitely don't see that in Nathan McSweeney, although who knows, he might change. And I know I loved Cameron Green early in his career, but this was hopeless. He needs to go. And this is the thing. I know a lot of people look at the scoreboard, and this is why it's important to look at matches. If you looked at the scoreboard, you could be convinced and say, oh, Sam Constance was the worst of the 3, get rid of him. Well, firstly, we need an opener. You could maybe put Josh Inglis in, but I mean, come on, there's only so much we can handle with that. But secondly, he actually looked okay. So then Travis Head, well, actually it started with that Usman Khawaja, started just suddenly hitting 4s and 6s. And Travis Head followed. And you might think it should be the other way around. No, it was actually started with Khawaja. And that aggressive approach, going at running a ball or close to it, actually worked. And West Indies started being more defensive, and Australia started to get on top. And then they got out just before they could really capitalise. It could have easily been a century each, even a double century each, but West Indies came back just in time. Bo Webster wasn't quite as dominant as or quite as good as he sometimes has been so far in his career. Alex Carey tried his best. He looked great, but he was out early. And then the funny thing was, Pat Cummins came in, hit a couple of, I think he hit 2 sixes. He hit at least one, and he got like 20 off 10 balls, something like that. And no, he looked great. So if you're looking at the batsmen that looked the best, you'd probably say, like as far as how good they looked, I'd say the best was probably Khawaja, then Travis Head, then Pat Cummins, then Josh Inglis, then Sam Constance. Those 5 I thought did pretty well as far as how good they looked. They were the 5 best. And I know there's a lot of people who will criticise that and say, no, but the scores, you've got to look at the scores. The worst batsman for me, as far as how out of sorts he looked in the first innings, was Cameron Green. There's not really any doubt about that for me. So he looked like he didn't belong. He was really the only one out of the top 6 that looked like he was a passenger, not just a passenger, he just did not belong. And I'd be thinking, for me, get him out. Don't keep going with him. So then West Indies came out and they're such hopeless batsmen. And, you know, I think there's one of them, only one that averages more than 26 and a bit. So, well, only one that averages more than 27, and that I think that's Craig Braithwaite, and he averages 37. Plus they only had 5 batsmen anyway, because they're playing the extra bowler. Not that Warrican even bowled. I don't think he even bowled an over, but he was there as a bowler. So they got 190 in the end, so 10 more runs. Now, was that good bowling from Australia? Not really. Was it the pitch was amazing? Not really. Was it great fielding? Not really. We were dropping catches all the time. I mean, West Indies were dropping catches, we were dropping catches. It was more just that West Indies batsmen are not very good. Now, Shai Hope did okay. Roston Chase did okay. I think their new guy, Brandon King, he looked okay for a bit. And they had, we could go over the umpiring errors. When Australia was batting, so Travis Head was out, and he edged it, and they said he didn't, and we even went to DRS and they still stuffed it up. In West Indies innings, Shai Hope was given out when he wasn't out. So, and there was another one later. It's all Australia's way, all against West Indies. There were 3, and they were all DRS ones. So you can't just say, oh, the umpire stuffed up and in the spur of the moment they couldn't tell. These were reviewed. They had slow motion replays and they still stuffed it up. And I think, I'm trying to think which one was the third one, but they were just blunders. And blunders by the third umpire. And one of the West Indians coaching staff or something, so Darren Sammy, he was their captain for a while. He's put in a please explain. Not complain, but please explain to the third umpire. Well, actually, he's gone to the 4th umpire, also known as the match referee, to complain about the 3rd umpire about how did you get 3 wrong, all against West Indies. I mean, DRS errors, like live errors is one thing. We can forgive that nowadays. We've got DRS to stop that. I call it the anti-Pakistan. As Pakistan were known to have terrible umpires, very biased, cheating really. And I mean, that's why we had neutral umpires, was because of Pakistan mainly. And then, I mean, look, India did cheat a bit with their umpires, but it was a lot more Pakistan. So we eliminated that, and then India went, we can pitch doctor. So, it's a completely different issue. They're always trying to find some way to cheat. But this was West Indies against West Indies, so it was in favour of us, my team. So, did it make a difference to the match? Maybe not. But it's quite shameful when that sort of thing happens. And, you know, had it been 3, had it been 1 one way and 2 the other, okay, we can accept that. It's 3 all the same way. Are they making a difference to the match? I don't know. I mean, Travis Head was out like 5 runs later, so who cares? But it was, I mean, we don't know how much Shai Hope would have got, but there was it was terrible. And there was a third one, I can't remember what the third one was. But these were not good decisions. So West Indies had a 10-run lead, and then we come in, so Sam Constance batting again, still on the second day. So he's coming into bat, and I'm thinking, right, he's got to get like a double century now to make up for it. And he dropped on, I think he was dropped on naught. I'm like, okay, you've got to capitalise on that. You know, when you dropped, you've got to get a big score. That's a rule. And he didn't. He didn't get 20, he didn't even get 50. The first one out was Khawaja. I actually think Constance was dropped twice. And he only managed 5. He got a boundary, which was quite a good looking shot. So he looked worse in the second innings than in the first. So the first, I'd said it was pretty good 3. It was a decent looking 3. His 5 in the second innings was worse because he was dropped twice. And he actually looked worse than Green. So Green then came out and he actually got to double figures. I think he got like 13. And he looked decent for a little while. And I mean, you know, I was just saying about how awful Green looked, but if you combine the 2 innings, maybe Green was ahead of Constance. Wasn't great looking. Inglis looked okay. He got out for, I mean, this is a funny thing. We had 4 wickets. 3 of them were double figures, between 10 and 20. And Constance got 5. And then the 2 not out batsmen were also double figures between 10 and 20. So we're all getting up to 10, but not managing to get to 20. So, a bit of a pattern. And Khawaja looked okay. But, yeah, he didn't look terrible, I would say. Inglis, also, he looked pretty good still. Head is still there with Webster. And Head's actually looking a lot better than he has for, I'd say, since the start of the Indian tour. So, Head didn't look that good in the last 2 tests against India. He didn't look that good against Sri Lanka for 2 tests. He didn't look that good in the World Test Championship. So he's had 5 average-looking matches. And I know he got a 50 out of in one of them against Sri Lanka, but it wasn't a good-looking 50. It's just Sri Lanka was so hopeless. Anyone could have got a 50. But, yeah, he suddenly is looking good again. So Head's looking good. Bo Webster, he looked okay. So I think Australia was 4 for 95, now leading by 85. And of course, we're starting day 3 tonight. It starts at midnight. Oh my goodness, it's so hard to stay up that late. I didn't manage it last night, so I only managed 3.5 hours last night. I just couldn't stay up any longer, so I went to bed at 3:30. Night before, I went all the way till 5:30. So that was for day 1. It actually goes to like 7:30, and I'm like, oh, that's too late. But yeah, and I need to comment that it's on Disney Plus. It's one thing if there's a streaming service and you've got to pay money to watch certain types of cricket. Okay, fair enough. And if it was all on Disney Plus, I could manage it. Disney Plus don't really have the facility to handle live coverage, I'll just say. They're pretty hopeless. But you still have good commentators and so forth. Amazon Prime are slightly better than Disney Plus, but they're also pretty bad. And we had to get Amazon Prime for the World Test Championship. Fox Cricket, Foxtel, are really good with doing it. I'd say Foxtel are the best in handling cricket commentator. They're better than the free-to-air. The free-to-air is pretty good, but Foxtel are an improvement, and it's worth paying that extra money to get that improved coverage. You're getting worse coverage with Amazon Prime. You're getting much worse with Disney Plus, and you're having to pay for it because there is no alternative. And the thing is, across 4 series, we had some of the, well, most of the Indian Test series, I think actually all of it, was coverage free to air. Fair enough. Okay, that's fine. That's great. It's coverage free to air, and we accept that because they want more money, that we have to pay a streaming service for anything overseas. Understand that. Why isn't it all on Foxtel, on Fox Cricket? They've got a cricket channel now. Why aren't all the others on that? Why do we have to pay Amazon Prime and then Disney Plus? This is costing a bit of money. Now, okay, Disney Plus had a little deal where it's $5 a month for 4 months, $20. The normal amount is $17 a month, which I think they're the most expensive one. Foxtel's $40 a month, but then you get like 200 channels, and so, you know, it's probably okay. And as long as you're watching everything else, that's okay. You can get, like all the Foxtel ones, you can get on KO Sports. And I think there might be something else, and you can get them a bit cheaper. It's like $15 a month then. Amazon Prime's about $8 a month, and then you can buy stuff off Amazon and get free shipping because you've got Amazon Prime. You don't want to get it for their shows because they're pretty ordinary. Although they did have The Boys. So if you're not up to date with The Boys, you can watch The Boys while you've got your Amazon Prime. But the thing is, you have to get all of them. Who can afford to have Foxtel, Amazon Prime and Disney just to follow all this? It's really diminishing the popularity of cricket in Australia that I'd say they're being so greedy. And it means also that people watching are not really aware of how players are really going. They might look at scoreboards, and scoreboards can give a hint, but particularly with batsmen, I think that they can be very misleading. I think with bowlers, what you see on the scoreboard and what has actually happened is pretty similar. But batsmen, I think, particularly if you're cherry picking individual matches, it can be very misleading. And there's easy batting conditions, there's harder batting conditions. You get unlucky. I mean, Constance was out in the second innings chopping one back onto his stumps, and I'd say that's very unlucky. That's a random dismissal. I wouldn't say that's his fault. However, he was dropped at least once, I think maybe even twice, in leading up to that, and he only got 5. But he batted out 38 balls, which is okay. That's helpful. But yeah, and they were saying that the ball and the conditions means that the first 20, 25 overs are particularly hard to bat on. But yeah, look, there's no way I'll be dropping Sam Constance at the end of this match. Would I drop Cameron Green? I mean, I don't know what Steve Smith's fitness is. If Steve Smith is available, someone has to go. And it's going to have to be one of those 3. So you've got Green, Inglis and Constance. Do you disrupt the batting order so much by having someone else open? And if so, who opens? Now, Labuschagne tried and only got 1 test, so I don't think he did that badly, but I think people view it as a failure. The selectors view that as a failure, so he can't be opening. Steve Smith was happy opening and he did pretty well, but the selectors clearly don't want him opening, so that's not going to happen. So that means that it'll have to be Josh Inglis. Now, Josh Inglis has said he would open. He opens in other formats, and he's not a terrible choice. But I think that the disruption that would be caused by having Josh Inglis going to open in the second test means that that's not worth it. So that tells me that Sam Constance has to play. Now we also have, well, I would drop Cameron Green in a heartbeat. We also have the fact that the selectors have said, oh, this is the permanent number 3. Okay, if he's the permanent number 3, you have to at least give him a second test. So that means that Josh Inglis is missing out. Now, it's not the worst idea because it's at least that's telegraphing stability. Josh Inglis would accept it. He's on the outer. He knows that. So him being the one to leave while Steve Smith comes back is the right messaging. It is saying, all right, we have a stable team. You're the one you're there to replace Steve Smith. Okay. Would you bring Labuschagne back? I wouldn't. Not after 1 test. Now, of course, he's still there in the squad. And if someone gets injured, he could come in. But yeah, I think that it has to be Inglis. And I know that sounds wrong because Inglis has done, well, I don't think he's done great, but I think if Inglis had got twin centuries and carried the team, or even if he'd batted as well as Travis Head has, I think Inglis would stay. But he hasn't done that. And what did he get, like, I think he got like 8 or something and then about 13. I have to check the scoreboard, I don't have that with me, but yeah. The question then is the pitch bad enough to be for Australia to get 180 and then 4 for 95? No. I'd say the pitch, I mean, it was probably a pitch where you could get 280, 300. And I mean, yeah, West Indies went in with 5 bowlers. They went bowling heavy. They had 4 fast bowlers and 1 spinner plus all-rounders. Like Roston Chase is an all-rounder on top of that. So they've got 6 bowling options, but 5 proper full-on bowlers. They're proper bowlers, they're not all-rounders. So when you go bowling heavy, you expect a low score. But I still think 180 is a bit lower than it should have been. I mean, they basically only had 2 really threatening bowlers. Graves and Alzari Joseph weren't that much of a threat. It was really just Seals and Shamar Joseph. And should be able to handle that. Just block them out until they finish their spells, then capitalise on the others. And we didn't do that. Warwick, I don't even think he bowled an over. He's a specialist spin bowler, they didn't even bowl. So I think that Australia's score was well below what it should have been. And I don't think the bowling was that great. I don't think the pitch was like that. Now, thankfully, West Indies do not have that good a batting lineup. And we had some umpiring go our way. But I think that the batting was pretty bad in the first innings. In the second innings, it actually is looking better. I'm seeing players try a bit harder. I mean, Sam Constance, I said, did worse. I mean, Khawaja got a lower score, but, you know, sometimes you just get out for a low score, it's not your fault. And I think that was really the situation. Sam Constance, I'm worried about him. I mean, I wasn't worried in the first 2 tests, I've just got to say this. I think some of the criticism of him was completely unjustified. But, yeah, he looked in two minds in the first innings, and he came out in the second, and sort of like somebody had talked to him and got in his head, and he's even more confused now. So what do we do to deal with that confusion? I don't know that stability is necessarily the answer. I think that you have to say to him, hey mate, how do you want to play? How you want to play, that's how you're going to play. You're still young, you're not yet sure of your game, you're not yet sure of what you're going to be doing. You're going to be realistic here. If you fail like this could be your last season for your life. This could be the last time you play for Australia. And you might be dropped anyway, but at least show them what you've got. Show them what you can do. That's what I'd be saying. I'll be saying we're probably going to give you the series. I think that they have to, really. And hopefully they don't drop him mid-series. They might, and there could be merits to it. But I think they've got to say, we're giving you this series. Show us what you got. Because if you're dropped here, and you might not play the next series, at least show us something that we can look at, you know, a year or 2 down the track if we look back at you. And if you do really well, we'll keep you. So that's the 3 options for him. He could either completely fail and that's it for his career. He could do enough that later on down the track he can come back, or he could be absolutely triumphant and secure his spot for a while. And that's what I'd tell him. I'd say to him, show us what you got. Whatever you're going to do, show us what you got. Whether that means smashing it around, whether that means blocking, whatever that means. You've got these good results, not just in the one test where you did well, but also in other forms of cricket. Because he's had a lot of successes under pressure. He's got the right temperament. Show us what you got. And, I mean, this test is over for him. But, yeah, that's the situation. I mean, who's going to win this test? I actually think Australia's ahead. But I mean, if it just becomes easy batting like the World Test Championship final did, West Indies could win. They do have the home ground advantage. They know the conditions a bit better. In Barbados, I haven't been to the ground, but you look at the pictures and it looks like they just sort of created an island and put a ground on it, and that's the whole island. I don't know if that's literally true, but that's what it looks like. It's so funny. I used to love watching tours to West Indies, and they'd be so late at night, but the pictures just look so amazing. I've heard that most of the people that live there are very poor. Maybe that's okay, because maybe you just go there and it's just such wonderful weather that it's okay. And I've heard that this is what I've heard, and who knows if this is true, but there's not really much racism there, which hopefully that's the case. It seems like they integrate with other races and cultures pretty easily. There's crime there, but it doesn't seem as if it's race-based, which, you know, there's a lot of racism issues around the world, but what I've heard of that area is that that's not really the case there, for whatever reason. Now, who knows, maybe it is. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But, you know, I remember they had this guy, Brendan Nash, who was born in Australia, and, you know, a white guy. And they ended up having him in the West Indies team. Nobody cared. Just like, oh yeah, you know, he's got family from here. It was good enough, and so they put him in the team for a while. And it was not an issue. If you went to South Africa and you did that, people would be talking about it for ages. But no, so it looks like a really good place to go. And I know there is crime, and I've heard of the types of crime they have. There are gangs there, so it wouldn't be perfect. People were showing some of the, like one of the commentators, I think it was Bundarth Sanderson. I can't remember how to say his name, but anyway, he got to commentate over there, and yeah, he's staying in this accommodation. It looks like it's perfect. It's hard to hate West Indies. This is a problem. It's really hard to dislike anything about them. And even when they were really good and they were beating you, it felt nice to be beaten by them. It was always very hard to hate them. And, you know, people in Australia used to love the West Indian team more than the Australian team when I was growing up, because the Australian team was so awful. And I was even tempted, I'd say, oh look, I'll go for West Indies. So they're a better team than Australia. That's obviously not the case anymore. Well, maybe it is, but it's not as obviously the case anymore. Yeah, like you'd have Viv Richards, you'd have, Brian Lara, I know he wasn't perhaps quite as lovable as Viv Richards, but you'd have Michael Holding, you'd have Malcolm Marshall, Joel Garner, who barely spoke, but they were lovely. And yeah, it's really hard to hate them. And even now, they don't just have this arrogance. I mean, some of them do a bit, but it's more casual. Even Chris Gale, and I know he's got a lot of people that complain about him, but it's very hard to hate him. And you know, I'm not even sure if I care if West Indies win. That's okay, they can win. They don't win very often, so let them have a win. And maybe we don't deserve to win. I'm not invested in this match as in I need us to win. I'm more interested in the team development, particularly from Sam Constas, but also a little bit the other batsmen. I mean, Cameron Green I don't care as much about, because he's going to come back as an all-rounder later on, as he was before. Although I am worried about this performance. And also Josh Inglis, I think he'll come back as a wicketkeeper, but it would be nice if they did well. But I'm much more interested in Sam Constas, and so far it's been an abject failure. And that's over for this test. I'm very worried about that, because we don't have any other openers that are knocking on the door. And it's very difficult to know. And I know I've said Jake Fraser-McGurk, but you couldn't put him in the test team with an average of 19. And he's not even playing regular first-class cricket. He'd need to change his game dramatically. I think he is a player for the future, but right now he's nowhere near it. So, you know, it is a difficult thing. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's it from me. Bye-bye now.